Alright, so we went ahead and programmed all of our code here, and I was going over it, and there's one error that we have, or that I had. Down here I'd said has heavy pack is equal to false, right? But it should be dot value is equal to false. So go ahead and change that, and we can test to see if this works. And one thing we should note before we test this is that when we go ahead and play, we essentially are starting over again, because before we were saving onto the data store service in a folder that was simply the player's user ID, right? Not with this string attached to the end of it. But now we're saving to the user ID with that string attached to the end of it. Okay. So it's when it goes to get right here, when we first log on, we connect and it goes to get, it's not going to find anything here. So leader stats is not going to have anything in it. This is not going to be true, and it's going to do this. Okay, setting everything to 0, restarting. And then it's going to go ahead and load up these folders for the player, right? The player is going to play. Maybe this might be a different value. Maybe these values might change. And then when he goes to disconnect, whoa, not there. Yeah, disconnect, remove, then it's going to pack up all of the data and set it and store it into user ID dash leader stats. And that's when these folders are actually going to be created, right? The player user ID with the leader stats string at the end of it. User ID with the player stats string at the end of it. And then when you play for the second time, it's going to be able to find that data and load it into the player's folder. Okay, so just be aware that all the stats that you have built up so far are going to be erased, and we'll go ahead and say publish to Roblox, and we will play it. We should see 002 on the leader stats board. But what we are actually wanting to test is to see if that player stats folder is being created, right? So here we go, right? So I guess before we do this, I'm sorry, let's go back here to Roblox Studio. Let's test it here locally in Roblox Studio so I could show you the folder structure and how it's created here. So I press play. And workspace is populating. The player service, all these different services are populating as it's talking to the server. And so now that everything's loaded up, we can go in here to players, go to our user ID, and you can see here's leader stats with the different data objects, and then there's player stats. And it has its data object, has heavy pack. Value is unchecked, meaning it's set to false, right? And yeah, so we have our folder structure here, and it's looking good, right? So that's why when we're in game and we go to the console, we type in game, that's this whole thing, dot players, capital P, dot name of our user, dot player stats, and then we're going to say dot has heavy pack, dot value. Right, and that's what we want to see. So let's go ahead and try that out. Let's file, oh, we already published to Roblox, right? So let's go ahead and come here and press play and see how this is going. Okay, so let's press the function key. It's the Fn and F9. That gets us to the developer console. Press on server, come down to the command line and say print game dot players dot user ID dot player stats dot has heavy pack dot value parentheses, and hit enter. And you can see here it prints out false, right? That's the value that's stored in here. And if this didn't exist, if player stats didn't exist, or this data object in player stats didn't exist, then we would get an error here. Okay, let me show you. So I can come over here and I could type in an extra character here under player stats, like a T, and hit enter, and I get an error, right? Player stats does not belong to players, okay, to the player. So we're good. And then let's see if the save is working by coming here, erasing the print. And just a heads up is in your console, you can go to commands that you previously entered in by pressing up or down on the keyboard, right? So I'm going to press up. I'm going to erase print and just leave the user ID dot player stats dot value, and I'm going to say equals true. Whoa, true. Okay, so that's not right. Okay, I got to erase that error, that T that I entered in earlier. So there we go. Player stats dot heavy pack dot value equal true. Okay, so now it's set to true, and let's leave the game and see if it saved. Okay. So we can press function F9, come to server, type in game.playersmusd.playerstats.has heavy pack dot value. Should print out a true value, right? So let's go ahead and put print in the beginning and hit enter, and it's true, right? So it did save on the server, and we're ready to go.